I'm sure many of us know someone, if not you, who's felt uncomfortable talking about religion and money or just have feelings of shame or guilt about it. Welcome to Yahweh's Money, a podcast where we discuss the crossroads or intersections of religion and money. We're going to go deep into topics like tithing and saving and debt and so much more from the religious view. I'm your host, Shay Cook, CEO and founder, Crusaders for Change, LLC, and our co-host is Vanessa McNally, one of our financial counselor, coach, educators. Let's talk about God and money. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Yahweh's Money. It feels like a long time, but since we've been here, but welcome to episode 18, Savvy Saver. I am Shay Cook, one of your co-hosts, and joining me today and always is Vanessa McNally. Hi, Vanessa.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here. And today's going to be a little different, I think, right?
It is because you're not only not our guest, but you're going to be our resident expert that you always
I'm in the
are.
hot seat. That's what it is. I'm in the hot
You're
seat.
in the hot seat. Exactly. And we're going to be talking about some great things, especially for this time of the year, but any time of the year, saving tips, how to be a savvy saver and different tips to help us save more. And then just dealing with, the fear and anxiety that comes with these hard economic times and how we
Right.
can look at and focus on God and still be great savers in that. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a great episode. You ready to get started?
Totally. Let's do it.
So, according to information reported by the U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis, Americans are saving far less than at any point since the Great Recession, indicating that the high cost of food, fuel, and housing is having an impact on many households. Many of us are feeling that today. Americans save just 3.1% of disposable personal income in September of 2022, which is down 7.9% in September of 2021, and the second lowest rate since April 2008, when the US was in the middle of the Great Recession. So we say all that to say, why do you think so many people are having a hard time saving now that during similar economic times?
Gosh, so I don't think I'm going to have a very popular opinion. But I feel like people don't know how to change their ways and their
Mm,
thinking sometimes. And I think, we say, okay, well, yeah, I have to buy groceries, but we forget that we can change the way we buy things.
mhm,
And we can make these subtle, tiny changes that will impact the amount of money we keep in our pocket versus the money that goes out of our pockets.
mhm.
So, yeah, so I think it's like we don't know how to change. We see it as inevitable. We're going to have to spend the money because everybody else is doing it. And, we think that nothing's going to happen in the long run. And I think it's a weird place to be. But yeah, I think it's kind of, we, we don't want to think that it's true sometimes.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, to add on to that, I mean, we have been in almost a 3-year pandemic. Hopefully, we're almost out of that. And, people are wanting to be outside again, right?
Right,
Traveling,
exactly.
having fun, etc. So they're spending a lot of money. But that really speaks to my heart about people don't want to change or feel like they don't know how to change. I mean,
Hmm.
and change is hard. It really is hard. But
Yeah.
when you're in different times of economic, whether it's recession, aggression, whatever it may be, you have to change your habits. You have to change how you're living. So that's a great point. And in 1 Corinthians 16:2, it says, on the first day of every week, each one of you should set aside a sum of money in keeping with your income, saving it up so that when I come, no collections will have to be made. So that was back in the olden days of times when people were collecting money. I mean, people still
Right.
do, tax collectors, obviously, and everything. And
Hmm.
inflation is crazy right now, but you should be able to learn how to set aside some money for when different things are happening. But
Right.
also, I mean, people are going to spend money, let's be real. But
Yeah. Yeah. But when you look at this and you really read what it's saying to do it first. I think that's
exactly.
the huge thing is so many times we'll say, okay, well, after I do this and after I do that, whatever's left, I'll save. But normally we don't do that. If we don't
Exactly.
do it first and foremost, we're not going to do it. And that we're just creatures of habit that way.
That is so true. Yeah, you got to save and save automatically, but first, right? Your
Right.
first fruits should
Exactly.
go towards God if that's what you feel.
Hmm.
It should go to your tithes and so forth, but then towards yourself, you should be paying yourself first. And a lot of people feel like, well, I need to go get all my necessities, which you got to factor that in too.
Yep.
But you need to be putting together or putting aside money for whatever the emergency situation may be.
Definitely. Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely.
So, what are some of your saving tips to help us save more, Vanessa?
Gosh. So I will tell you, I have been very frugal my entire life. And that is not to say that I don't spend money on things or I don't make
Mm-hmm.
mistakes or, buy things I shouldn't buy because I do. We all do
Mm-hmm.
that. But, early on in life, I had some amazing role models. I had my grandfather, had my mom, and my mom's very favorite saying was eventually everything goes on sale. And we weren't allowed to go shopping unless we had waited that amount of time for that item to sit in a store and for it to go on sale. So I would always pray that things would still be available in my size when the sale happened because you never know what's left.
That
That's the
is
big
so
thing about
true.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, please, please, please have that sweater in my size when the sale happens. But then her thing was, well, if it's not there, it's not meant to be yours.
Mm.
So, so that's the first thing we have to think about is truly eventually everything's going to go on sale. It may not be exactly what we want or how we need it or when we want it, but eventually everything goes on sale. So I think with that kind of being our mindset, it takes a lot of planning. We have
Mm.
to think ahead. So, some of the weird things that I do is, I try to shop out of season. That's
Mm-hmm.
number one. So, you're buying winter clothes in the summertime when things are on clearance or on sale. So, you're
Mm-hmm.
just thinking ahead. You're being more conscious of,
Mm-hmm.
what you're spending, how you're doing it. And it's really just mindful buying. That would be my
Mm.
first step is just really think it out, plan it out, and write things down. That's the other thing. Make a list of what you want, what you need and always go for those needs first
Mm.
versus the wants. So you may want a really nice pair of, black boots, but you may already have a pair that are just fine.
Exactly.
And as I think, especially as women, we're like, well, I need a new pair because everybody's seen me in that pair. But buy the things you need first versus your true wants. So but
That's good.
day to day savings, I think that's kind of, where we start with all this too. So think about like our food purchases and saving. I think most people, how do we buy food? We just go to the store, see what looks good and we buy it,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I think planning ahead for that is my number one saving tip with that is just plan ahead, make a list, stick to your list
Mm-hmm.
and use the savings flyers. Like back in the day, I used to coupon like it was going out of style.
Yeah,
Uh, but that takes so much time, and I
it
don't have
does.
that
I've
time.
been there. Mm-hmm.
And now it's like you don't have to, spend the time doing that for the coupons. But, if you use your flyers, shop from the flyer. That's how I
Mm.
do my grocery shopping every week. I sit down with the flyer that shows what's on sale, and I'm a huge proponent of going to Aldi. Love freaking Aldi and Lidl. So if you've not been there and you have either of those near you, give it a try.
I just saw
Uh,
Lido's yesterday for the first time in Maryland, so that's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah, they're amazing grocery stores. They feel kind of like a Sam's Club to me
Mm.
for ones and twos versus bulk buying.
Oh,
So there's
okay.
no frills. There's, it's
Mm-hmm.
very basic, but you save money because of that too.
Awesome.
And the quality you're going to get there is going to be better or just as good as some of the other places.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at their flyers every week, you're going to see one of the big differences is a lot of their items that they have on sale are fresh things.
Mm.
And I think that's something that we miss out on with a lot of other grocery stores.
Mm-hmm.
We want to buy from the flyer, but everything's processed, everything's canned.
Mm-hmm.
So I will get my little Aldi flyer out and I will see what's on sale and I build my menu around the
Oh,
flyer.
wow.
So that's number one is I build my menu out every week, plan ahead. I know exactly what I need, and I always leave room in there for like a fun night or going out or not feeling like cooking.
Mm-hmm.
So there's always room in the budget for pizza.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be my biggest thing is just plan ahead, give some of these, saver stores, a try and shop from the flyer. If you shop from that flyer, you're going to get the best deal and you've not had to spend all this time and money, collecting newspapers and cutting and clipping things. But yeah, shopping from the flyer makes my life so much simpler on a day to day basis.
Wow. Thank you for sharing. That's awesome. I'm sure you got more tips and we're going to get into
Yeah.
that. But, going back to what your mom was saying, everything's on sale. It sounds like she was teaching you delay gratification, and that in
Definitely.
order to delay your gratification, you have to plan for the inevitable when you have to buy something, right? So you
Right.
need to look at the year and plan out the seasons for clothes and when you're going to buy it on sale, but
Hmm.
also the food with the flyers. I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So, with all that too, then we have other things we purchase. So, start planning ahead if you know you want to go on vacation.
Hmm.
I love to travel, and that is one thing that I will never give up unless I absolutely have to is
Yeah.
travel. But I truly think you can travel on a budget and still
Hmm.
have just as much fun. It's just planning and taking that time. And I think a lot of people, they just don't know how to do it.
Hmm.
We think, okay, going to Europe for 3 weeks is going to be super expensive. And yes, if you just go online and you buy the tickets, sure. So, plan ahead, go on vacation out of season.
Mm.
If you don't have little kids in school, that
Mhm.
is a huge money saver because you don't have to go on vacation during the summer or during
Mhm.
holiday breaks. So go in those weird times like Disney World. If you've ever been to Disney World in the summer, most people are going to say, I will never, ever do that again because it is
Exactly.
horrible.
It's crazy.
You spend a lot of money, you don't get to
Mhm.
do a lot. But if you go in February,
Mm.
oh my goodness, prices are lower for hotels. Food prices are lower. You're not going to spend as much money on cold snacks because it's going to be cooler outside.
Mhm.
And you get to do more. So you can go for a shorter amount of time, even, and do way more than you could in the summer.
Mm. Great
So
advice.
that's one thing I would do with that. Or, find weird ways to travel. That's another thing to do. You can find lots of blogs online. You can, find lots of people who, that's what they do is they make their money finding cool ways to travel. And you can, plan your own trip. There are a lot of trips out there that are booked for you and everything's handled. But, I look at that as yes, it takes away some of the burden of having to plan, but I don't get to do everything I want to do. I get to do what
Mm.
they tell me I have to do. So, take some time, plan your trip out. In the past, I've done 3 weeks in Europe and gone to 7 countries. And,
Oh wow.
you know, during that time, took a ferry, took a plane, took a train, everything you could possibly do to save money during that trip, and was able to do that for two people for just under $2,500. And that's including everything.
Wow.
So it's really just taking the time to plan and
Mhm.
finding those low cost options. And if you do enough research online, you will find those. Like if you have ever lived overseas in Europe, Ryanair is probably your friend. It's a super cheap airline
Mhm.
that's kind of like going on a bus, but you know, other places have those things as well. So just
Mhm.
take the time and plan and talk to people who've been there before because they always have tips for you. So,
And that's good because even
yeah.
in the word, it really stresses planning and preparation. Like in Proverbs 30:25, it says, ants are creatures of little
Hmm.
strength, yet they store up their food in the summer. So they're
Right.
planning for the other seasons, right? And even if
Hmm.
you go deeper into the notes about that scripture, ants teach us about preparation. The conies, which are the badgers that goes on in that scripture, teaches us about wise building. The
Yep.
locusts about cooperation and order, and the lizards about fearlessness. And then it goes, and if you go into Genesis 41:36, it says, this food should be held in reserve for the country to be used during the 7 years of famine that will come upon Egypt, so that the country may be ruined by famine. Will may not, excuse me, be ruined by famine. So, and again, if you go into the notes, it says many find detailed planning
Hmm.
boring or unnecessary, but planning is a responsibility, not an option. We must
Right.
take time to translate God's plan for us into practical actions too. So that word I keep hearing you saying is planning, and we need to plan and we need to plan. People are like, I don't
Exactly.
have time to plan. It's boring. It's unnecessary. No, it's not. In order to get anything done in life and to save and to be successful, there's a piece of the puzzle is planning. It's usually the first step.
Right. Exactly. And I think so many people see that, like you said, as boring. Like people
Yeah,
don't want
they
to do
do.
it.
Or
You
I'm
know?
lazy. I'm not doing that.
And there are other people like me who, we strive and we live for that. That's kind of like who we are. In my family, my nickname is Jumpy, because if something were to happen and somebody says, "Oh, let's do blah 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 next year," I jump into action and start
Oh.
planning. So, so it's one of those things where sure it takes time, but I think planning ahead, it just you are so much more knowledgeable about the whole
Mm,
situation if you plan, you know and there's no, I mean, you're always going to have a situation where there are going to be unknowns, but there are going to be
mhm,
less unknowns if you plan and you're prepared for those unknowns. And that's the biggest thing, is being prepared for the unknowns.
mhm,
Like if we lose a job, or something happens and our food supply is impacted like it's been over the past 3 years,
mm,
being able to say, okay, this is what I usually do, but to save money, I can make a few small changes,
mm.
and boom, you've saved some cash.
Yep.
Like people who have large families,
Mhm.
that's something that they are really struggling with, especially with teenage boys. Anybody who has a teenage boy knows
Oh,
that they are
Lord,
going
my
to
brother
eat.
has 2 of them. Yeah.
And they are going to eat a lot.
Mhm,
So instead of doing, like a huge pan of chicken, maybe make a casserole that has chicken in it. And you're
mm.
still getting that, but it's costing less because you're using items like, you know, beans and rice in
I
the
was just about to
casserole.
say beans. When we were growing up, my
Yeah.
mom, she would cook them beans and the chicken and casseroles every
Mhm.
week. Yeah. Mhm.
Exactly.
Mm.
And it's making those small changes. So, if you have a pack of chicken breasts that normally lasts you 2 or 3 days, if you plan appropriately and use it as an ingredient in something versus the main dish,
Mhm.
it can last so much longer. It's just changing the way we think a little bit, and I
Mm.
think that's super hard for a lot of us because we feel like we've earned, a good steak on Friday night or whatever it might be. But I think it's just saying, okay, I get that this is what I want, but what do I
Mhm.
need? And it's
Mhm.
going back to looking at needs versus wants and understanding what a true need is. Because I think a lot of people these days, what we would see as wants in a lot of situations, they see as needs.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've seen that, Shay, uh,
Mhm.
but it's like you sit down with somebody, and to them, having a really nice car is a need
Mm.
versus having a car is a need. And it's something that's built into us, and it's something that I think maybe who we grew up around, people we interact with, those type of things impact our vision and our version of wants and needs. So I think it's like kind of going back and saying, truly, what is a want and what is a need, and
Mm.
what will get me through this to
Yeah.
save some money. I mean, there have been times in my life where I had $20 a week for groceries, and I ate well.
Wow.
And it's because I was able to plan and kind of
Plan.
figure things out.
Mhm.
Planning goes back to all that. Or thinking outside the box. That's
Mm.
another good one.
Mhm.
Um, I will tell you that when I was in college, I was broke as anything, like
Yeah.
most of us. And the only way that I would go out to eat is if I did a mystery shop. So, if you're
Mm.
not familiar with mystery shopping, it is when you work for a company and you pretend to go into a restaurant, a
Oh, yeah.
hotel,
Okay.
a movie theater, whatever that may be, and you're observing and you're counting how long it takes to get your food. You're seeing like if they offer you upsells, all those little things that a company would want to know about their
Mhm.
restaurant or their employees. And you sit down and you have a meal, and usually it was way nicer than what I could, afford at the time. And then you go home and you write a report. And that report sometimes would get me $200 worth of food.
Oh, wow.
It's crazy. And I would take things home and I would live off of, leftovers for a week. Uh, but it's a great way if you can't afford to go out and you like nice things.
Mhm.
If you're good at writing, it's an amazing way to save cash because it costs you nothing and you actually get paid and food for it. There are times I've done that and I've gotten a hotel stay. I've gotten dinner the night before at Roos Chris, if you're
Wow.
familiar with that place, and
Yeah.
then breakfast the next day, and then, a coffee on the way out. And all of that's covered. And it's like a mini vacation. So it's like thinking outside the box of
Mhm.
ways to enjoy your life, have fun, but do it in a responsible way.
That's awesome. Wow. So thinking outside of the box, planning, and
Yeah,
everything's on sale.
exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Those
And
are the
taking
three
some
kickers.
time, whether it's an hour or two out of the 168 hours in a week to plan, go through the flyers, go
Yeah.
online, try to save some money with the food or vacations, whatever.
Hmm.
Yeah, that is awesome. So, what about right now during these hard economic times where fear and anxiety could set in? What helps you keep, what keeps you focused on God's provisions, during this time, being the savvy saver that you are? But, of course, there's a lot going on in the world. So,
Right.
how do you keep focused on God?
Yeah. So I think first and foremost, it's being thankful for what we have
Mm,
and for how
mm-hmm.
long we've had it, because
Yeah.
we've had some amazing times, and some of us have had better than others, and
Mm-hmm.
we all have those ups and downs. But being thankful for what we have, because
Mm-hmm.
most of us are in a position where we've never really had to, to really want or need for our basic necessities.
True.
And if we have, we've learned from that. So, it's one of those things, be thankful. And then, secondly, pay attention. I think that's
Mm.
something that a lot of us don't do. We just kind of, we have our blinders on. And,
Yeah.
we think everything's going to be okay. Everything's always going to be the way it's been. And we just think, okay, life is going to be all rosy. Everything's going to work out
Mm-hmm.
no matter what. But I think it's realizing that, okay, yes, we're going to be provided for. It may not be the way we think
Mm-hmm.
or the way we're used to, but we will be provided for. But
Mm-hmm.
we have to be able to say, okay, things may get hard. I need to plan again. It comes back to that planning, and making some changes, and being
Mm-hmm.
okay, being okay with making those changes ahead of the hardships.
Yeah.
And I think that's something I've noticed. A lot of my friends have been, we've been having these conversations about what we can do now to prepare for, the unforeseen future. I think people throw out recession a lot right now.
Mhm.
We know people are losing jobs in record numbers
Mm.
again, and it's a scary time. We went through this, what, in 2008, 2009. It's been a while since this has happened. So really just paying attention and saying, okay, I have a car. My car runs fine. I don't need a new car right now. I can
Mhm.
wait 2 years, 3 years, whatever
Mhm.
that might be. And just saving for those unknowns, because if you buy a new car today and you lose your job next week, how are you going to make those
How are you
payments?
gonna make that payment? Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
really just saying, whatever I can, handle and deal with now that I still have, I'm going to keep it. I'm going to keep it running and in good shape, and I'm going to wait
Mhm.
and, be patient. And I think
Patient.
that's something that's so hard for a lot of us,
Mhm.
is delayed gratification again. So
Yeah.
you're saying, essentially that we don't know what the future holds. Things are looking a little rough. Let me
Mhm.
just hold on to what I have for a little bit longer.
Mhm.
And it's such a smart decision. It's so hard for a lot of us to do that, because we want things, especially after being in a pandemic or we've stayed at home all these years. People want to travel. They want new things. They want to go out again, and they want to look cute when they go out. So so it's a hard time to like be in
Mhm.
this place where you're finally able to be who you've missed being, number one.
Mm.
But we're finding ourselves in a time where we need to be a little more patient and save a bit.
So
So,
true.
know that we will always be provided for, even though we don't know how or, or what. But also realizing that we have to, we have to take a second too and say, I'm okay with doing without the best of the best for a little bit too.
That's so true. And for me, what keeps me focused on God's provisions is faith, obedience, and
Yep.
remembrance. But you're right, the gratitude and being thankful is very important. Even in 1 King 17:4, it says, "You will drink from the brook, and I have directed the ravens to supply you with the food there." And that story is based off of somebody needing help and just being
Hmm.
reminded God is going to supply you food in shelter, wherever you are. And even
Right.
going in further into the notes in that scripture, faith is a step between promise and assurance. Miracles seem so out of reach for our feeble faith, but every miracle, large or small, begins with an act of obedience. We may not
Right.
see the solution until we take that first step of faith. So that's important of having that faith. But during that faith, while you're waiting on whatever you want, being patient, having delayed gratification, being
Yep.
thankful for what you have in that moment. And then
Hmm.
even going further is 1 King 17:16. For the jar of flour was not used up, and the jug of oil did not run dry, in keeping with the word of the Lord spoken by Elijah. So, really, again, just having that faith that whatever it may be, oil or flour back in the day, or,
Right.
food and, the basic necessities that will be provided. And, as you work hard, delay gratification, shop on a
Yeah.
sale or everything goes on sale or both,
Right. Yeah.
being patient and planning, I think you can accomplish anything in this world with that. Those
Oh
simple
my gosh.
truths. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think that's something we have to think about too. Faith is work. Like we have to
So true.
work with our faith,
Yeah.
and we work to having more faith versus,
Mm-hmm.
little faith. So we have to remember that we're always having to put some effort into that faith as well. And remember that even though we have faith that will be provided for,
Mm-hmm.
whatever we're given, we are blessed with that from God.
So
And it's
true.
our job to take care of that. So,
Mm-hmm.
we don't spend everything we get today. We have
We
to
shouldn't.
make exactly. We have to make those changes. And if something
Mm-hmm.
happens and we go out and we blow all our money today and we say, oh, well, we weren't provided for. Well, yes, you were. It's just you weren't able to sit with it for a little bit
Mm-hmm.
and have the faith that if you use that to take care of your needs, things are going to look up and God's
Amen.
going to take care of you. We still have free will and we still have, the ability to make decisions. So
Mm-hmm.
that comes back on us too.
Amen. Amen. Well, awesome. Any final thoughts, Vanessa?
I just think right now, I think a lot of us are stressed out. A lot of us,
Mm,
especially with holidays coming and all that fun stuff too. It's one of those times where I think we want to do a lot, but it's okay to say, I can't. And
mm,
it's okay to say, let's change things a little bit. Let's hold back a little bit and just focus on needs versus wants. And it's okay to speak up and say that to someone. And your real friends are going to be cool with it. And people who are only there for your stuff, they're not going to be cool with it. And
mm.
that's okay too.
That's
But it's,
okay.
yeah, just speak up and take action.
I love it. And that's amazing. And I was reminded and learned a lot from this episode of, everything goes on sale. That should always be in your mind. Everything goes on sale. And it's okay to have delayed gratification and just plan, plan, plan. And that was amazing. So thank you, Vanessa, for that great expertise and sharing your savvy saver tips. That was really, I keep on wanting to say savvy, savvy saver tips. Hey,
I
let's
like
make
that
up a
word.
new word
Yeah.
today. Yeah. So our next episode 19, we're going to get into gifts of gratitude and just showing gratitude for this year of 2022, which has been crazy, but we still are grateful that we're making it through this year. And then you can tune into current and future episodes of Yahweh's Money wherever podcasts are found, including Apple, Google, and Spotify. So we just want to thank you again for joining us for this episode. And remember, it's always better Yahweh's way. Thank you for listening to this episode of Yahweh's Money. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the crossroads of religion and money. If you have any questions or suggestions of topics you would like to hear us tackle, please email us at yahweh@crusaders4change.org. Also, we would love to hear your feedback on today's episode, so please leave us a review and remember to subscribe to our podcast. To hear all of Yahweh's Money's latest episodes, please visit us at www.crusaders4change.org or wherever podcasts are found. God bless.